In this video, we will understand reference variables and objects in a bit more detail. So we already understand the concept of reference variable and primitive variables, classes and objects. Now it's time to go a bit deeper. So let's say we have a class student and it has a single property, for example, name. It means we declared a single instance variable name in the class. Let's not focus on the syntax, but just understand, consider it a properly defined class with a single property name. Now let's say we created two objects, st1 student1 equals to new student, and give it a name Andy. Okay, and let's declare, create another variable student2 new student with name Tom. Okay, so here we are creating two objects and two reference variables to hold those objects. Now consider it, what will happen. So we know that on the heap, this is the heap area. On the heap, two objects will be created, one with the value nd or the name nd because it has a single property, so let's call this nd, and another one is Tom. So we have two objects on the heap and two reference variables pointing to them. So we say that these reference variables are distinct and unique reference variables because they are referring to unique objects, and the object is not same as the Tom object. They are different objects on the heap and reference variables are pointing to them. Now let's see what happens if we change name of the student 1 to Tom. If we run this code and if we update the name of the nd to, let's say, Tom, so let's clear it. No. So what happens now? Does it mean that the reference variable st1 will start pointing to the same object? Does it mean if we update the name to Tom, there is basically only one object, not two anymore? No. So the object is still different, but we are changing the property or changing the state of this object. So what Java will do, it will simply update the property of the same object. So st1 is still pointing to the object, to the same object, but now the name has been changed to Tom. So we still have two different objects but with the same name because they have a single property name. Now what happens, let's say if we do this, st1 equals to st2. If we assign a reference variable to another reference variable, how would it impact the object linking? So in this case, what we are saying that the bit pattern that st2 holds, assign that bit pattern to st1. So we are basically assigning the bit patterns of the object. So each object has a bit pattern that represents a pointer to the actual object. So in this case, let's say the bit pattern was 01xy01, and in this case maybe 00xx01, because they were pointing to different objects on the heap. Now we are saying that copy the bit pattern of st2 and assign it to st1. So we are saying that change this bit pattern, it's no longer 01xy01 but use the same bit pattern 00xx01, which essentially means that we are saying that because the bit pattern changed, it means this linking is not valid anymore, but now st1 is pointing to this same object. So our current situation is something like this. we have the heap. This is the old object with value Tom. This is a new object which with value Tom. But now st1 and st2, they both are pointing to the second object. The first object is there on the heap for the time being, but it will be garbage collected and deleted if it is not being used anymore. But for the time being, it is there on the heap, but it is not being referenced. No reference variable is pointing to it. st1 and st2, they both are pointing to second object. So now if we say something like this, st1 dot name equals to tom1, if we update any property of the object, so what it means is it will be updated on the heap. So JVM will update this value to tom1, and because st2 is also referring to the same object, so if we print system.out.println st2.name, we will get the same value that was being updated by st1, which means tom1. So what happened, let me just go back and reiterate the same thing. So what happened, st1 and st2 both are referring to the same object, and we simply executed this code st1.name. We are saying that whatever object st1 is referring to, change it, change the name property to tom1. So that's what Java did, because it found that st1 is referring to this object, and it updated the name property of this object, which is tom1. And then we said that print the name property of st2, which means find the object that st2 is referring and fetch its name. But in this case, st2 is also referring the same object, and that's why it will get the value tom1. So there are two distinct reference variables. We declare two reference variables, but they are pointing to the same object. It could happen. So that is the important and a little bit confusing but critical thing with reference variables and their linking with objects. Okay, I hope it's clear. Basically, it will help us a lot if we understand this concept now. So we will cover few more things in future lessons. For now, thank you.